And we are live. So, a warm welcome, greetings to each and everyone. So, hello, my name is Phil, and this is the Let Us Talk It Wednesday Zipinars. So, this initiative is made possible by Cogent Integrated Business Solutions. So, they're an IT company based in Detroit, Michigan, and they thought of giving back to the community. And the best way to do it is through a form of a platform which shares free knowledge, because knowledge is something that is very hard to take away or to steal from anybody. So we invite guests or professional guest speakers to impart their best practices and their experiences into this platform to share to you, and you'll be able to learn from those experiences that they'll be sharing from various field, definitely. So let us talk it actually covers different topics of any form as long as it is valuable to each and everyone. And what makes it more valuable is the personal perspective and the experience itself of the seasoned professional guest speakers that we bring to you. And we call it Zipinar as we try to zip in like a zipper. So, two topics in one session to minimize the time consumed but maximize the information delivered or shared to the public. So, just sharing to you a short presentation about the Let Us Talk It. So, this is a free knowledge sharing webinar, so not for profit collaboration initiative. And Let Us Talk It also does startup acceleration program and youth webinars and workshops as well. And these are the associated brands of Let Us Talk It, which is the one I mentioned, Cogent, and then Tech Social, and then Michigan Business Connect Community Investment Group, and the Social. And these are the food ecosystem as well, which is associated to Let Us Talk It and Cogent. So if ever you came along in the Detroit area and you see of the one of this food ecosystem brands, definitely you have to try. And yep, and if you like what you see, and you like the content, the information that you gathered from our professional guest speakers, make sure to share this into your socials as well, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, in order to provide additional visibility of our guest speakers as well, so they can continue on imparting their best practices and sharing their knowledge as well. All right. And let me introduce the first topic that we have today. So, democratizing strategy. So, as leaders, we want to make a difference, contribute towards the strategic direction of the business we are part of, and be recognized. And to talk about this topic is co founder and CEO of my co strategist, with 30 years of strategy and transformation experience, working for some of the world's largest global companies, and has decided that it has been time to change this strategy game. And without further ado, let me hand over this platform to Craig Wallace as our first speaker.
Thank you very much, Phil, and hello, everybody. I'm coming to you from Oxford in the UK this afternoon, and I hope all of you are well. Hopefully you can see my screen, and we're going to talk about democratizing strategy, which is a journey we are on, as Phil mentioned, to try and change the game of strategy. But before I do that, let me just give you a little bit of background as to who we are. I talk about our history because my co-founder Ralph is actually based in the US in Washington, D.C. Both of us have a lot of industry experience working with organizations. And then we crossed over into the consultancy side. And as soon as we did that, and having worked pretty much with all of the different consultancy houses around the world, if you name them, BCG, McKinsey, Bain, etc., we wanted to start to change how strategy was done within organizations. And really, the pivotal moment for us was when COVID hit and we'd won a piece of strategy work, and we had to really change the way it was delivered, because we couldn't turn up and do workshops and post-its on the wall because you just weren't allowed to get together. And that kind of triggered us to do something completely different. And from then on, we stepped forward and started to form a company to go about doing that. So we would call ourselves a new company, but with an experienced soul, if you want to think about it like that. So what do we mean by the strategy game? Well, quite often it involves the organization trying to deal with some form of challenge, whether that is to grow, to improve their market share, their profitability, to maybe take advantage of a new and emerging market. It's around the formulation of the strategy, the kind of what are we going to do to address that challenge. But it's also about the business and operating model design okay, if that's where we want to go, then how do we operate? How do we work? How are we going to achieve that? And that often involves transformational change and planning for people in the organization. And probably the harder part of it all is as we execute, we want to make sure we get the value, right? We want to make sure that the changes that we make to achieve that new way of working, to achieve that strategy, deliver the value that we expect. Now, I'm conscious this is called IT talks. And in fact, IT, as you can imagine, is a big component of this. If you think of the changes that you do as an IT organization under the transformational change and planning, you're effectively changing parts of the operating model, new processes, new systems, or even their business model if you're introducing new ways of reaching customers using digitization and different channels. So IT is very much often embedded in this whole strategy process, and what becomes very important for a lot of organizations is alignment of what's the challenge we're trying to fix, what is it we're going to achieve, and then is the whole organization aligned to pull in the same direction and achieve that, and do the transformational plans and activities that we execute help deliver those changes and therefore the value that we're delivering. So that's what we talk about when we talk about the strategy game. And if you think about how it's done in most of the cases today, then typically it's driven from the top. The CEO decides that it's time, normally from board pressure, to refresh the strategy. And it is a refresh in most cases. They've got a strategy already in place, but maybe it needs refreshing. They need to take a look at that. And they'll typically call in some consultants to do that, right? They're calling the big consultancies, and those consultancies will work with people in the organization. Maybe there's a strategy function within the organization, and start to run workshops and things to help take that strategy and refresh it. Don't be fooled by the fact that although organizations have strategy teams, very much of their work often is around planning and budgeting. And quite often people get a little confused in terms of when we think of strategy, we're not thinking about just the strategic planning and budgeting process. We're thinking about actually the strategy of how are we going to win as an organization. And so that's traditionally the approach. And if you've been involved in that approach, then typically the process starts off with some sort of research, followed by a series of workshops where we look to engage people and involve people. There's then a review of the work that's done, and finally some approval. And throughout that process, a number of different versions of the reports are generated as people work through that process. And typically it takes about 3 months. It can take longer. It can take shorter, but typically about 3 months. And typically it costs somewhere between $500,000 and $1.5 million to actually get that work done. And that will depend upon how big you are as an organization, but it'll also depend upon which of the consultancy companies you work with. Okay, McKinsey would be more to the right, and maybe more boutique consultancies to the left. So the current process is in place. The challenge, I think, that's out there, and we only put 2 numbers up here at the moment, is it's not necessarily been a massively successful approach. When you look at any of the research that is done, even included by the consultancy companies themselves, right, 35% think their strategy will lead to company success. Now, that's not very high. And that was a PwC report. And then if you look at a study by Oxford University, then 55% rate their strategy execution as ineffective or very ineffective. And I think it doesn't matter which research and which reports and studies, and there are several out there. Most will talk about the challenge of engagement in the strategy process, and more importantly, they'll talk about the challenge of execution. So that's really the challenge we're trying to address, right? How could we do something differently to effectively make the strategy process more successful? And in doing that, we've set ourselves 4 goals, really. One was we need to improve this gap between the strategy and the execution, because actually it's only any good if we get value from the strategy, right? It's only any good if that strategy gets implemented. But more importantly, I think today, people, especially in purpose-driven organizations, want to make a difference. And to make a difference, they want to be involved in this type of work, because this is their biggest opportunity to have an impact. If you think about it, to influence the direction of the company, to influence how the company is going to be successful. And so we need a process that actually meets the kind of desires of the leaders of tomorrow or today, and also therefore potentially also strengthens their strategic thinking skills. Because the reality is a lot of people aren't involved in strategic thinking very often, and maybe have not come across it. So it's okay to want to do it, but you've also got to have the capabilities and the skills to be able to do it. And then to be able to do it in a world where things are more uncertain and fast moving. If you think about the process that I talked about earlier, then it would be executed once every 2 or 3 years and would take 3 months, and then it wouldn't be done again for another 2 or 3 years. That isn't fast enough in today's fast-moving business climate. So we need a way which not only engages the leaders in the organization, is suitable to our business climate of today, and delivers value. And that's really what we wanted to focus on, right? How can we enable these people in this environment to actually make the difference and fulfill what their purpose is? So the first step was to focus on solving the challenge of inclusion. How do we actually involve more people across the organizations other than those that just happen to be invited to the workshop? How can we make it a more inclusive process and a more continuous process? How can we engage the whole organization? Because if we can engage more people, if we can include more people, not only will we get their insights and ideas, but as they follow on that journey, they're more likely to understand the strategy, they're more likely to support the strategy and help with the execution gap. So inclusion was at the center of what we started to look at. If you think about it, imagine everybody in the organization having a place to keep their strategic information, because this isn't just one big job done every 3 months. These things are changing on a continuous basis. So if you're responsible for keeping an eye on the stakeholders, where do you keep your stakeholder information, and how do you update that on a regular basis so the whole organization understands where our stakeholders are today and what sort of expectations they have? If you're responsible for looking at the customer needs and innovation of the products, where do you keep your innovation information and your customer need information, so that the whole organization understands that, and that we start to see a pipeline of innovation coming through, and we can start to see how we may have to prepare for that. So imagine a place where everybody can keep a little bit of their strategic information, which is then available collectively. That's what we mean by inclusion. That's what we mean by having a continuous way of working. And therefore, we decided to change the game, as I said before, by creating a digital platform. This was key because you need somewhere to put the information. You need somewhere to collaborate. You need somewhere to help guide you through the strategic process. But more than that now, we then wanted to say, how do we take advantage of artificial intelligence? Because that's now available to us. We can start to augment the information that we have with artificial intelligence, and that helps us automate and accelerate. And that's really important, because if you think back to that research stage of strategy, once every 2 years, somebody does a month worth of research to find out what's going on in the market. Well, now you can start to accelerate that and do that on a more frequent basis and let the technology do the lift and shift. And then when you have that platform and you have that automation, how do you change the ways, the habits, so that actually strategy doesn't become something we do every 2 years, but actually becomes something you do not daily, but on a frequent basis, that it becomes a habit, it becomes familiar, it becomes something that you're part of. And that's how we set out to change the game. So hopefully, and I don't know if sound will play. Will sound play, Phil, because I've got a little video next.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. If sound will play, let me just show you a little bit of what we're talking about. Now, I'll make an excuse before I start. You're going to see my avatar talk. It's a bit of an experiment with the avatars, okay, but I'll apologize up front, but hopefully you'll get the gist of what we're doing.
Our digital platform has extensive functionality from strategy formulation to execution, all assisted by Pickle, our AI assistant. Our think maps are targeted at helping you solve specific challenges. Let's see how we help startups. Capturing your ideas is made easy with the innovation canvas and built-in mobile forms to capture ideas when they occur. Using Pickle helps identify the potential market needs you need to think about. Our stakeholder map helps you identify who is around to help your business. Our market segmentation tools help you decide which market segments you need to focus on. The business or social business model canvas helps bring your ideas together onto one page, great for communicating your business. Going deeper to understand your customer needs and expectations is brought to life with customer personas and journey maps. The value proposition design canvas supports designing and tightening your product or service. Identifying your differentiation, your unique selling points that will convince customers to buy from you. Working out your pricing strategy. Then clarifying your business model with tools that help you design a robust business model that takes advantage of today's business model innovations. Our platform bakes in sustainability and social thinking into your decision-making. The planning tools ensure you have a clear roadmap to achieve your objectives. And the integrated risk management ensures you are proactive in addressing potential roadblocks and disruptions. Thank you for watching. We look forward to showing you more of our insight-rich and collaborative platform that enables you to think, decide, and act on today's complex challenges.
So please don't take this as a product demo, but what I wanted to give you an idea of is the power that you have if you can create a platform for an area like strategy that hasn't changed in the last 40 years, and start to collect that information and share it across the organization, allowing people to collaborate. And how powerful that is when you add AI to it to augment the data. But then as things change, because you've digitized it, you can change it quickly. And tools like this are great at helping develop the capabilities of the leaders, as we talked about, to improve their strategic thinking. And therefore, you start to take greater control of your business and where you're going. And you also effectively have a more engaged and therefore satisfied workforce and bunch of leaders. Oh, so going a bit fast. So that's what we're about in terms of wanting to change the strategy game. As I said, it's about connecting people, making them feel included, allowing them to contribute. But really, it's about finding a different way of working using technology in an area that we haven't done. And I think this is more important than ever now, because today we face a lot of complex challenges. And often these challenges are best solved when people work together and collaborate. And the beauty of having a platform approach to this is you don't necessarily have to constrain yourself to just people within your organization. You can add other organizations, experts, thought leaders, people from education onto your platform to help contribute and shape your strategy. And I think that becomes really, really important when you start to solve the challenges, especially around sustainability, where we need to collaborate and work across multiple organizations. The whole challenge of resilience for organizations across geographical boundaries and supply chains become really important. And so we have to think about doing things differently. So that was all I was planning to talk about, Phil. But hopefully I've just whet the appetite for thinking about strategy in a different way. And I think from an IT perspective, thinking of a different way that IT can be more engaged in that process in the organization. And I know, having spent a long time in the IT world, we often talk about that relationship between the business and IT and getting alignment. And I think, if IT can find a way to play a role, even if it's initially modernizing the strategy process, but then actually being part of it because it's a more inclusive process, then I think it can also help in advancing the relationship between business and IT, and therefore the value that it delivers.
Yes, definitely. That's very agreeable. Like IT, the technology being developed right now is making more making businesses grow faster if they adapt to such usage of technology. And then the strategy as well evolves as the technology or the processes are improved as well. So
And I think
yeah,
I
sorry,
was
go
just
ahead.
going to say, Phil, as well, having sat in many traditional workshops where you teach these canvases to people, you can teach the canvas in 20 minutes. The problem is people then struggle with what to write down, at what level, what type of things do I put on the canvas. And one of the beauties of AI is it can suggest some things. Now, you may not take them, you may
Yes.
take some of them, but it helps you get across that barrier of what do I put down at what level. It gives you kind of here's some things to start thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
Select the ones you like and then add
Yes.
some additional ones. And I think that's a really important part, a contribution to helping demystify the strategy process and also educate people on what they need to do.
That's true. Because like cases like that, like how has improved right now, like it's gathering the collective information available over the network or over the internet, right? Like then it will give you the spark of that idea that well, this is possible and this could do it, something like that.
And
So
and I think it removes bias,
mhm,
because
true.
often you get, most of my experiences have been the first things that people throw up in a workshop are their pet projects that they want to keep going and make sure there's budget for. and they miss some pretty important topics, right? Because they're kind of blinded a little bit by wanting to get
Yes,
it. And so the AI can throw up other things where you have to force a discussion, right? And I think that's very helpful.
that's true. Like being biased mostly happens, so it always does, and then it, some of the biases ends to failure. Uh,
Yes.
yeah. We have someone who sent a question here. It says here with regards to distinctions between generations, have you noticed any variations in the kinds of strategic priorities that people value between generations? Like, how can business develop a plan that takes into account with this many viewpoints?
Yeah, I think I would say the main difference is is I don't know if it's generational, but it always used to be about how do we make money,
Mhm.
right? And today you're seeing a people concerned about people, community, sustainability, those types of topics are causing organizations to think more than money, that think broader about the impact they're having and putting strategies together to address all of those. Now, I think there's a lot of young people generationally that are bringing those topics to the table. Would they have happened anyway? Yes, but probably not as quick. I think the younger generations are putting these things on the table. I think that's a key shift, right, from what we used to see around. But I was doing some analysis on strategic decisions made by CEOs of older generations recently, and quite a few of them, had started to put sustainability and things like that into their strategic decision making. So I don't know if it's generational, but there's certainly a shift in terms of the things we're worried about. Also resilience, right, is continued, because of the shocks of COVID, shocks of supply chain, etc. Resilience is a topic that is very dear and close to people's thinking at the moment, especially with things like wars and things going on. So there's certainly some newer topics, let's say, that have risen up recently.
All right. I hope that takes care of that question. Anyone else from the attendees? Okay. No one for now. Yeah, if in case you have your questions later onwards, you can just type it there. Craig will still be with us as we move. Even though we are tackling the next topic, he can still type in his answer for you. That's necessary, definitely. And yeah, I'm checking YouTube Live. We don't have any questions so far, Craig. So, any upcoming events? Like, do you have online events people might want to attend to, or anything you'd like to promote? And where can they access your information or any free consultation for your services?
Yeah, sure. So I'll put some links in the chat, but we've been doing some podcasts with leaders around different topics, which are really interesting. One of them was the CIO of Coca-Cola. We've also got some stuff on AI as well. So I'll put a link to the podcasts up in the chat, and you can check us out at mycostrategist.com.
All right. So you can even they can even Google it out, right? My co-strategist.
Yeah, mycostrategist.com. Yeah.
All right, perfect. And if you have any inquiries with like Craig personally, you can definitely add him on LinkedIn. He's very responsive. Definitely, you can send a connection invite and drop him a message. All right. So I guess that's for the first topic. All right. So again, Greg, thank you so much for bringing that to the table, and that's really a great topic to talk for the first part. And
Good.
introducing the second topic that we have today. So see. We have the second topic as transforming customer acquisition strategies. So, the past 5 years, we have seen dramatic shift in customer acquisition strategies, fueled by the explosion of digital marketing, data analytics, and evolving consumer behavior. So companies now harness AI-driven tools, social media, and influencer partnerships to attract and keep customers. To stay ahead in this fast-changing landscape, businesses must grasp emerging trends, adopt personalized marketing, and focus on building enduring customer relationships. So, with this topic, we will dive into these shifts and uncover the strategies that will keep businesses leading the way in acquisition. And to give or deliver this topic to us, um, we have Matt Hudson, a sales strategist and transformation expert. And over the past 5 years, he has customer acquisition strategies. He been able to transform it dramatically, driven by uh, the rise of digital marketing. And also, he is a dedicated sales leader with over 20 years of experience and specializes in building and scaling sales teams for startups and small businesses with the passion of creating reputable processes that drive predictable revenue growth and foster a strong company culture. And without further ado, we would like to introduce you to Matt Hudson for the second topic.
Thanks, Phil. Very, very nice introduction. I appreciate that. Let me share my screen right quick. Okay. You guys able to see it?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. So as Phil mentioned, I'd like to take a few minutes and go through kind of the changes in the evolution in the sales process, how customers buy. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the tools, the data automation, and then how that's changed the approach or how we should be approaching from a sales perspective. The old way of doing things, even 5 years ago and beyond, it's just not effective anymore. You've got people that are hesitant to interact with sales folks. So a lot of the old methods of email blasts and volume marketing is just not effective. So as Phil mentioned, I've been in sales for a very long time. I've led sales teams for over 20 years. And I'm currently, I own Startup to Scale, the company that I own. And what we do is we work with startups and small businesses that are in that transitional period where they're growing and need to move beyond CEO-led sales. So, all right, there we go. All right, so from a data, I guess, strategy perspective, today's sales environment, it's not just data, obviously. Data is something that is essential in order for a business to thrive. Strategies, transformations, how we acquire customers, and then helping us focus on the right prospects, streamlining our efforts, and closing deals faster. So tools like CRM systems and AI tools, they've become critical in making some of this possible. So if you go back to 2019 even, most SaaS companies were still relying on the traditional methods. So you've got your cold emails, in-person events, buying leads. Those tactics obviously are very expensive and time consuming, and it's really hard to track the effectiveness of that. So fast forward, 2024 with the evolution of AI, as Craig was talking about before, the game's changed as far as how we approach it. Businesses have to embrace digital strategies like social media and marketing in order for them to be successful and sustainable. AI tools, those are obviously something that have fueled that even further in content marketing. And the biggest advantage of the shift, I think, is not just about the automation capability, but it's about optimizing the campaigns kind of in real time. So Craig mentioned earlier, being able to adjust, not wait for that 2-year mark before you do a reevaluation of the strategy. This allows you to kind of do it more so on the fly. So spending time, maybe less time at trade shows, and then more time targeting digital ads that by using AI and gathering more insight data, You can be much more strategic. Obviously, you've got to house that information somewhere. So with CRMs and the ability to track, understand where each prospect's at in the sales funnel, it makes it easier to prioritize who and when we follow up with, based on real-time insights. So AI tools have further enhanced it. They allow us to predict customer behavior and then adjust messaging, or our outreach approach, on the fly. So we're still seeing a shift. Whatever tools we're using today, 5 years from now will not be. It'll be something new, but AI, I think, is going to be driving that. Like I said, we've all seen kind of a shift in the marketing in traditional ways. In overseeing sales teams, the shift is also it's not just in marketing, but it's also in sales. And more importantly, the collaboration between sales and marketing becomes even more important. You've got tools that will not only evaluate, but monitor customer behavior. And if you've got a disconnect between sales and marketing, the effectiveness of some of these tools they won't work. So we've gone from a place where, marketing and sales could have been siloed in the past. Collaboration, it's helped uncover new methods that both teams can use to be more successful. So recently we had a team focused on COOs. So I had a sales team that we had a program that we created specifically for COOs. That was the persona that we thought would be most fruitful. And in doing so, our efforts, very dismal results. I mean, we weren't getting really any kind of traction. Our open rates were pretty good, but the response rates just weren't where they needed to be. So partnering with marketing and gathering some of the insight data that was what they pulled allowed us to do some of the A/B testing and changing or adjusting on the fly, to hopefully attract not only opens but also some response rates. And we've seen a significant bump in responses just by using the tools that are available to via AI, and changing the messaging to be more effective. So if sales teams are not currently collaborating with marketing, I think you're going to be challenged with the effectiveness of messaging and also just getting your brand out there. So we'll talk a little bit about the importance of data. One of the biggest shifts that I've seen in sales over the past few years is how data's taken the lead in shaping customer acquisitions. We're not just throwing things at a wall to see what sticks. We're actually making informed decisions backed by data. AI and AI tools, game changer when it comes to targeting the right prospects, and prioritizing your leads. So from my experience managing leads as they come in, ideally you want a 360 view and understand where that customer's at or where that prospect is at in the buying cycle to avoid a lot of the time wasted. So having the tools in place to be able to track, every email, every touch point, and then understand the effectiveness on response rates. How long are they staying, active on a page? There's several things that you have access to do now that you couldn't before to really hone in on the right type of audience. And it may not be that you're focused on the wrong audience. It's just, it may be the wrong audience right now. So from an AI perspective, I think it's important to note that while it's great from an efficiency standpoint, and I think we've all gained from being able to use it for some of the more mundane tasks, I think it's extremely important to maintain the human element side of things. I think I'm sure you guys have seen it and I've seen it too, an influx of messaging that you can tell is AI driven. And I don't know about you, but I immediately delete as soon as I can look at something and know that it came from AI. So I think it's important to blend the two together. And Craig actually alluded to this earlier too, whenever he was talking about strategy. It gives you some ideas on what the messaging could be, but that shouldn't be the messaging. It's something that you would want to cater to your own voice. And I think sales in general, while AI is great, I think people are starting to realize that relying solely on AI is not something that will be effective. So automation, obviously it's revolutionized how we approach it. I think tools like chatbots and automated email workflows, they do allow us to maintain engagement without manually touching. That said, again, I think automation streamlines things, but the interaction is still going to be essential. Chatbots are great, for handling those initial questions and keeping leads engaged, but they don't do a good job of building the rapport and the relationship with the customer, which is where the trust comes in. And that's what people buy. People buy from people. So using the tools for efficiency gains is fine, but building and establishing the trust in the beginning is honestly what sells. I've seen firsthand both sides, and the brute force method that we used to use, and I'm sure we all have done, it just isn't effective anymore. People, meaning prospects, buyers, they're not looking to be sold to. They're already, in most cases, have already done enough research to know what they want to buy by the time you talk to them. So pitching them via some automated message doesn't necessarily render the same results that you would want. So substituting that for a real conversation is important. So I think you mix the two. Your chatbot, your automated messaging is more of a keeping a lead warm, but I think you got to mix in a phone call or a personalized email that's not automated to really balance things out. So personalization, I think this is an interesting thing. When we first started talking about personalized emails back when you were doing more of a mass volume, it was pretty common for somebody to pull, what school somebody went to off of LinkedIn or something off of LinkedIn that was pretty generic, but could be captured by some of the automation tools. I think you have to take it a step further now. I don't think that's something that will be effective. You're not connecting with somebody if you're talking about what school they attended. So I think it's important to do the research on the front end, use AI, but then also use the tools in such a way where you can find out what's important to that prospect, where are they at in the buying cycle, and then personalize it based on that, not necessarily based on superficial. It's about understanding, I guess, what matters most to them. What challenges are they dealing with? Right now, customers expect a level of engagement where their time is valuable. And if you're going to take up some of that time, it needs to be very targeted with specific messaging that's relevant to them. So from a sales perspective, I mean, it means really digging in to the data and insights, and then taking the time, not just to look at their job title or the company name, but really digging into what is it that they do, what's important to them, and why does it matter? And that has to be the message that you lead with. So AI advancements, it's become a powerful tool, I think, and particularly, when it comes to predicting behavior and future needs. We're no longer relying solely on historical data and waiting for customers to tell us what they need. AI kind of helps us analyze customer behaviors now in real time, and then it gives us insights, where it wasn't possible a few years ago. It's been a huge impact for the sales community. I think AI can certainly track patterns and give us some insight into where somebody's at in the buying cycle. and it does allow us to cater some content more specific to the persona or the person that you're working with. So it does let you, from a sales perspective, take a volume of leads and understand which leads are most important to me right now based on the insight. And we see trends popping up where that may change. So persona based specifically, marketing may not be the right choice. Persona based with some insight added in, I think is more so the direction that you want to go. I think it's interesting that AI kind of allows you to be more strategic in timing, but it's also something that you still can't play the volume game, and it still does take your personal touch in order to be able to connect on that individual level with your prospect. I think the strength in AI lies in some of the mundane tasks that you can have it do that frees your time up to be able to do more research on that prospect and actually do the more in-depth connection. So using that as a tool to offload some of your tasks so you actually can spend the time, I think is the key to being successful. So I think it's given us a lot of tools to better understand and predict. And I think it's going to be essential. I mean, sales is evolving, and I think in order for us to be able to maintain customers, I think it's important that we have to adjust with it. And like I said before, I mean, the tools that we're using today, they're going to be different. We're going to have different tools, 2 years from now that we'll be able to have even more insight. So I think it's important to understand and recognize that while there will be new tools, people buy from people. So I restate that as much as I can. So I know we've covered a lot. We started by looking at acquisition and how it's kind of shifted over the years, moving from traditional methods over to a data-driven approach is I think the key message. And then how are we leveraging the tools like AI, like our CRMs, to be able to I guess not only help us, but it gives us an advantage as opposed to us having to not only do the research but also keep the leads warm, making the outreach, phone calls, knowing who to go to, I think is the key. Automation is going to continue, and I think being able to leverage it in such a way where it's not doing the job for you, but it is something that allows you to be more efficient and effective. I think that's key. And you got to personalize it. I mean, again, I can't stress enough that from what I've seen and my own experience, even the effectiveness of sales it cannot be led by AI driven only. So I think that's it. I did want to include just at the very end a little bit about me. I mean, again, I mentioned it earlier, but I work with startups in the same space of that transition period. CEOs get to a point where they can't do the sales anymore and also do the strategic. And in a lot of cases, CEOs are not necessarily salespeople. They're not equipped to be able to build a sales team. They're thought leaders, and that's great. That's why they've built their companies. So I work with them on how do they transition out of that buyer-led sell, so they can get back to the strategic vision. And I put together a sales team and structure, process people, all of that to kind of help them transition out of it. So that's all I had, Phil. I don't know if there are any questions or anything that I can address.
All right. Thank you so much, Matt. And I kind of agree. Like it's always different. Like when you put personal touch, like for yourself when you're responding to your network, like you'd already know if it's a person you're talking to. Like the actual emotion will be attached to the actual context, then AI will just differentiate it. You will lose your network if you rely too much on AI interaction. So yeah, check in on the attendees if you have any questions, by the way, and or additional inputs. It is welcome actually. So you can just open your mic or you can type it in chat. Uh, yeah, feel free to do so. And yeah, anyone can open their mic. Sir Jitanshu, great content. Kindly shed some light on balancing high tech and high touch, especially in cold calling.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. It is a balance that you have to. There is still somewhat of a volume play because you do have cold calling is tough. Cold outreach is tough, and it's getting harder to do. I think right now your balance should be less on volume and more on relationship. And the only way that you're going to be able to do that is to leverage the AI for more of your daily mundane tasks. Spend time researching the person and the company, and then take a much more targeted approach. I don't think high touch necessarily is going to be the game moving forward. Um, I'm sure you can find sales that way. I mean, brute force has to work sometimes, but I think you'll burn more bridges than not if you try to play that game. So I think you use the high touch for your tasks that you would typically have that kind of bog you down, and focus more on the relationship side of things. I think Craig has.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that, Matt. So we're doing some work with some companies where they're using the platform that we have not to create their strategy, but actually to analyze the customers that they're wanting to attract. Because if you think about it, what the tool is doing is allowing you to potentially retrieve a strategy of the company, retrieve the challenges that they're facing, retrieve, an understanding of their customer segments and maybe which ones are growing and not growing. So if you flip it onto a target, then actually you can very quickly build up some intelligence, which then enables you to think about how you're going to craft that more personalized touch. So some people are using it not for their own strategy, but actually as part of their customer acquisition. So it's quite interesting, and we've seen that increase, I think, because it is so hard out there, as you say, at the moment to attract and win customers with traditional methods.
I agree 100%.
All right. Anyone? Yeah, another? You have any questions? Additional inputs are welcome, though. Checking live. No questions on live. And join conversation. Open panel. And in case for those who have missed this session and you find interesting stuff, definitely you can watch this recorded session on our YouTube channel. Let us talk it. So just feel free to search and then yeah, names of our guest speakers are there. So feel free to get in touch with them. So it's Matt Hudson and Craig Wallace. So yes, and we'll be sharing you contact. You can talk to me on LinkedIn as well. And yeah, that's my name on LinkedIn. It's written there, Filjohn. So you can add me to get informations of our guest speakers. Definitely, I'll be happy to share it with you for your benefit. And yes, I think Matt, everything is covered. Jutangshu, Sir Jutangshu. Thanks. High tech does often kill the human touch. After all, customers, investors, and employees are all human. It's true. It's
Agree.
always different. The human touch is always different. You can feel it the moment you receive the text message, the email. You'll definitely know.
Yep.
All right. Okay, and yes, let's go on promoting your business, Matt. Anything you'd like to you have a book, you have a online event or seminars?
No, not currently. I am working on a book, but I'm not quite there yet. So more to come. I put my contact information in the chat in case anybody wants to reach out. But I'm working on one. So hopefully we'll see one soon.
All right, definitely. So, yep, you can Google up startup the number two, so startup to scale, or you can send Matt the email matt at startup two, the digit two, scale.us. So make sure you send your inquiries if you're interested with the services. So I guess we have covered two great topics that we have today, and the best part about it is that if you have listened to their introduction, like the number of years they have spent into their best practices until to where they are right now, speaking from their experience, definitely it's a great value to hear from the seasoned professional guests that we have today. And yes, these they are very responsive in their LinkedIn accounts. So if anyone have will see this recorded session and want them to speak in their platform as well, just send them a message out. Definitely. So they're very responsive. And yes, Michael, thank you for this great session. Big respect to both speakers, definitely. So thank you so much both for joining us today and sharing a spare of your time with your best practices to help the community learn from one professional to another. All right. So this has been the end of today's Zipinar, and we would like to invite you again next Wednesday. So if you have time or free time, definitely you can join us webinars every Wednesday, 12 noon to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And would be welcoming you all. We will bring you two new guest speakers and two new topics that we will be discussing for that day. All right. So feel free to join, or you can watch the uploaded sessions of our Zipinars on YouTube. Let us talk it. So that's let space US space talk space IT with an exclamation mark. So that's the YouTube page, and feel free to join or share the contents to help our guest speakers as well and our audience to learn from more topics. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for joining, attendees. Take care as always, and see you again next Wednesday. All the best, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Phil.
Phil.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Matt. Take care.
Mhm.